Some gardeners are innovators. They like to do new things with old things, like brushing the zone and grow trees that are not supposed to grow where they live, for example. If you fall into this category, then this video could give you some ideas to experiment with, as I'm going to talk about 5 unusual places to plant and grow trees, and even fruit trees. If you are a more conservative gardener, you may still want to stick around, as the interesting part is not the where but the why, which could give you some food for thought. Let's go over the 5 places from trivial to master level. Number 5 on the list is growing trees in raised beds. Why would anyone grow trees in raised beds? Well, growing veggies in raised beds is now very common with gardeners. There are many benefits to this practice, like improved soil quality, pest control, and accessibility. Raised beds are great if your lower back is not as reliable as it used to be. Most of these benefits also apply to tree seedlings or saplings, and even small trees. I made a video where I discussed growing mango trees in cold climates, and why I like to bury them with a pot in my raised bed during the warm season. Check it out. One additional benefit to grow trees in raised beds is that the wind cannot knock them down. This is particularly interesting when the pot is deep to accommodate the taproot of the young trees. However, as the tree and its pot get bigger, it becomes more difficult to bury them in a raised bed or leave them out of it, while the benefits become less obvious. This kind of follows the law of diminishing returns. Let's take it up a notch, literally. We're on number 4 on the list, growing trees in the air. I'm talking about hanging basket planters, but at a mind-blowing scale, not just to grow flowers, but all kinds of plants and trees. The hanging gardens of Babylon were one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. One of the earliest and most reliable accounts of the hanging gardens was from a Babylonian priest by the name of Berosus around 290 BCE. Berosus described the gardens in these terms. In this place, he erected very high walls, supported by stone pillars, and by planting what was called a pensile paradise and replenishing it with all sorts of trees, he rendered the prospect an exact resemblance of a mountainous country. Among the 7 wonders, the hanging gardens are the only one for which the location has not been definitely established, as archaeologists have yet to find conclusive evidence that the gardens were indeed located in Babylon. Some historians believe the gardens were actually not in Babylon, but in Nineveh, the capital of Assyria, and were built by Assyrian king Sennacherib as a testament to his power and wealth after he destroyed Babylon in 689 BCE. However, Berosus' account unequivocally refers to King Nebuchadnezzar II as the builder of the hanging gardens, and Nebuchadnezzar is known as the warrior king of the Neo-Babylonian Empire, after the destruction of Nineveh in 612 BCE and the collapse of the Assyrian Empire. Why did Nebuchadnezzar build the hanging gardens? According to Berosus, he built them for his wife, Queen Amytis, because she missed the green hills and valleys of her homeland. In other words, the hanging gardens of Babylon were built because of love.
Roger that, Control.
Interestingly, like with many other historians after him, it is unclear whether Berosus saw the hanging gardens himself. One historian that most probably eyewitnessed the hanging gardens was the controversial Greek historian Ctesias during the 5th century BC, more than 100 years before Berosus. Are the hanging gardens of Babylon a fiction? I'll let you decide with this surviving but contested description from Ctesias in his last ancient book Persica.
Welcome home.
Beside the citadel was the building known as the Hanging Garden. This wooded enclosure was square in shape, with sides 400 feet long, and sloped like a hillside with terrace built on terrace as they are in a theater. During the building of the terraces, galleries were built underneath them, which carried the entire weight of the gardens, each rising a little above the one before it on the ascent. The uppermost gallery, which was 70 feet high, supported the highest level of the garden, and this was the same height as the battlements of the city wall. The walls of this structure, which cost a fortune to build, were 22 feet thick and were separated by passages 10 feet wide. The galleries were roofed with stone beams 16 feet long and 4 feet wide. Above these beams, there was first a layer of reeds set in great quantities of bitumen, then 2 courses of baked brick bounded with cement, and then a covering of lead so that moisture from the soil would not be able to sink through. On this was piled earth, deep enough to contain the roots of the largest trees, and when it was leveled over, the garden was planted with all sorts of trees, which would appeal to those who saw them, either by their great size or by the beauty of their appearance. Because of their arrangement, the galleries were all open to the light and contained royal apartments of all kinds. One gallery had shafts leading from the highest level and machinery for raising water in great quantities from the river and supplying it to the gardens. This machinery was entirely enclosed and so could not be seen from the outside. Now let's take it down a notch, literally again, with another wonder of the world for the number 3 on the list, growing trees below the pathway. But now I'm talking about the new 7 wonders of the world, and more specifically the Taj Mahal in the city of Agra, India. Let's play a game. I'm going to try to answer 2 why questions about the Taj Mahal, and for the number 2 and number 1 on the list, it will be your turn to find the answer to the why question. The Taj Mahal was commissioned in 1632 by the 5th Mughal Emperor Shah Jahan. The construction took more than 20 years, with a total cost probably above present-day $1 billion. Why did the emperor build such a massive complex? Well, the simple answer is because of love, again. The Taj Mahal is a mausoleum dedicated to the emperor's 3rd wife, Mumtaz Mahal, who died giving birth to their 14th child. The emperor was so sad that for 2 years he gave up listening to music, wearing jewelry, rich and colorful clothes, and using perfumes. He even postponed the weddings of his sons during his long grieving. As his wife passed away on a Wednesday, he also prohibited all entertainments on Wednesdays. Since then, the Taj Mahal has been a symbol of love for people across the world, including many past and present heads of states. Even these 2 guys went to visit the Taj Mahal with their wives not that long ago. Let me know which one of the 2 photos looks more romantic to you in the comments section. But it would probably be too romantic to ignore the possibility that the emperor also wanted the Taj Mahal to hold a cultural and political legacy, the legacy of the Mughal Empire. The founder of the Mughal Empire was Babur, who was known to be a keen garden maker. While Attila the Hun is often remembered for his quote, "There where I have passed, the grass will never grow again," Babur could be remembered for the quote, "There where I have passed, the dirt will never prevail." This quote is my creation, but please don't quote me on this. Although he conquered a significant part of India, Babur found it too hot, too flat, and too dusty. Disgusted and discouraged at first, he eventually introduced the Persian style of garden, known as Chaba, at Agra. Shah Jahan, descendant of Babur, built on Babur's legacy with the construction of the Taj Mahal and the luxuriant gardens that surrounds the main building. That is it for the answer to the question why the Taj Mahal was built. It is interesting to note that the Taj Mahal complex under the British Empire, and to some extent the present-day Taj Mahal as well, looks very different from the Taj Mahal under the Mughal Empire. The British changed the landscaping to resemble bare lawns of English manors. They also had different planting policies to maximize the view over the main building. The original Taj Mahal gardens were much more luxuriant with tall shade trees, and while the pathways of present-day Taj Mahal are almost marginally higher than the garden beds around, some historians say the trees were grown in earth that was originally well below the pathways, perhaps as much as 5 feet down. Why were the trees planted so low? Shah Jahan planted many fruit trees like mango, citrus, and pomegranate to mimic the beauty of paradise. Planting the fruit trees well below the pathways allowed visitors to easily pluck the fruits as they strolled the grounds. What's the point of creating abundance out of a desolate land if one cannot easily enjoy the abundance? The Taj Mahal had both aesthetic and functional qualities. In 1983, it was designated a UNESCO World Heritage. Talking about the UNESCO, let's move on to the final items on our list of unusual places to grow trees. But now it's your turn to figure out the answer to the why question as we get closer to master level with the number 2 on the list, planting trees on top of megalithic stone pillars. If you ask archaeologists which orchid has attracted international attention the most in the 21st century, Gobekli Tepe would probably be on top of the list. To be fair, Gobekli Tepe is not just an ordinary orchid, as it was designated a UNESCO World Heritage in 2018. So what's so special about this orchard lost in the middle of a dusty mountainous region of Turkey? Well, Gobekli Tepe is also a major archaeological site that has rewritten the ancient history of humanity when it was rediscovered in 1994 by German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt. This site has many massive carved megalithic stone pillars with a peculiar T-shape. There are many other megalithic sites across the world. But what is so special about Gobekli Tepe is that, using various dating methods, including radiocarbon dating, archaeologists have come to the agreement that this site was built between 11,000 and 12,000 years ago. Gobekli Tepe predates Stonehenge by more than 6,000 years. Before the discovery of Gobekli Tepe, it was thought that 11,000 years ago, humanity was in the Stone Age with no knowledge of pottery, agriculture, let alone building and sculpting megalithic stone structures. It is interesting to note that archaeologists and historians have little doubt about how these massive structures were transported, carved out, and erected by primitive Stone Age people using primitive tools. No, the debate among academics, who quickly assumed that Gobekli Tepe is a place of worship as humanity's first temple, is whether religion or agriculture led nomadic human hunters-gatherers to switch to a more sedentary lifestyle. One would think that this debate would have been rather quickly settled. Just dig a little bit more and you'll get your answer. Well, it turns out that since its discovery in 1994, less than 10% of the Gobekli Tepe site has been excavated. Actually, the site was first identified in 1963, so it's been more than 60 years now that this time capsule has been waiting to tell its story. But this is besides the point. Why were the trees planted at Gobekli Tepe? According to German archaeologist Leclerc, who took over the management of the archaeological activities after Klaus Schmidt died in 2014, the trees were planted by local farmers before the Turkish government purchased the site. He even went as far as saying that the trees may even help protect it from erosion.
I don't plant trees.
I know, right? This site has not required any protection from erosion for the last 11,000 years. Planting trees there to fight climate change makes more sense than fighting erosion.
That's complete nonsense.
You mean fighting erosion or fighting climate change?
Are we the science people or are we the idiots? Which one do we want to be?
Okay, don't get all worked up like that. Whew. This 2006 photo, taken more than 10 years after the beginning of the archaeological excavations, shows that no trees were to be found in the barren land around the site. By 2011, rows of pretty mature trees were already surrounding the site. This is even clearer on this 2013 photo. On this 2024 satellite image, there seems to be no other orchard planted on top of the Gobekli Tepe hill. Most of the other orchards are relatively far from the site, and not on hilltops. Growing an orchard on top of a hill exposes the trees to the wind. Access to water and maintenance are also more complicated. The trees planted by the farmers on the Gobekli Tepe hilltop are olive trees. Olive trees develop fibrous root systems close to the surface of the soil. How deep below the surface are the roots buried? Some of the megaliths uncovered so far were actually buried so close to the surface that they were scarred by plows. Can the roots of the olive trees reach the lower layers of the roots? Olive trees can develop deep tap roots, particularly in dry areas. Some full-size trees can have tap roots going as deep as 7 meters, especially in very loose soil. So why were olive trees planted on top of the megalithic stone pillars? This question is for you to answer. But don't worry, other measures were taken to protect the roots, like backfilling the site. I just wonder why they have not yet backfilled the enclosure of the Sphinx in Egypt to protect it. After all, it was still buried up to its neck before the 1920s, like in this 1737 sketch and in this 1864 photo. Since we are on the topic of Egypt, Let's move on to number 5 and final item on the list of unusual places to grow trees.
I respect China's achievements, which are tremendous. I think it's a role model for many countries.
Yes, I agree. China is an even better choice for the top spot on the list, growing trees on pyramids. In case you didn't know, China is, with Mexico and Egypt, among the countries that have the highest number of man-made pyramids in the world. There is a cluster of them near the city of Xi'an, in the Wei River Basin. In this region alone, there are more than 40 pyramids, but many more are scattered across other regions of China. Unlike the Mexican and Egyptian pyramids, most of the Chinese pyramids remain unexplored to this day. The Chinese authorities have explained that the archaeological excavations with current technologies could damage the content of the pyramids. To understand the relationship between the Chinese and their pyramids, at least from a Western point of view, it's worth going back to the time when the Chinese pyramids were first mentioned in Europe. In his book China Illustrata, published in 1667, German Jesuit priest Anastasius Kircher wrote, "We know that the Egyptians always regarded the pyramids with divine honor. The traces of this same cult can be found in China today. The Chinese hold the pyramids in such a veneration that no one will dare approach them unless he had first performed the appropriate ceremonies." The Chinese pyramids today are devoid of any stone casing and seem to be made mostly of earth, mud, and clay. However, in 1945, during World War II, US Air Force pilot James Grossman spotted a gigantic pyramid that was twice the size of the Great Pyramid of Giza during a flight between India and China. He described the pyramid as completely white with a shiny white shell that seemed to be made of metal or a white stone. The top of the pyramid was a huge piece of jewel-like material that could have been crystal, according to him. The pyramid Grossman saw that day has never been found, but there are other accounts of similar-sized pyramids made of earth, notably from American trader Fred Meyer Schroeder in 1912. His guide, a monk, told him that the massive 1,000-foot-high pyramid they stumbled upon during their journey used to be covered with stones, but giant gullies formed on its sides, which led the encasing stones to loosen and fall down. The stones had since then disappeared. Citing the book on history of Eastern India written by another Jesuit priest, Pierre de Jarric, in 1614, a few decades before him, Kircher concluded, "From this it is clear that the Chinese borrowed these pyramids from the Egyptians, Persians, and others who were accustomed to worship a stone or a rock atop a column or a pyramid, instead of God. This is shown in my Oedipus. The account of one of our fathers says that the Novizonian pyramids are built in just this way, with the best stones, not only in the cities but on the high mountains all over the empire." It seems that well before anyone else in the West, the Jesuits had a keen interest in Chinese pyramids and their connection to Egyptian mythology and cult. With regards to the stone Novizonian pyramids, the Jesuits probably referred to pagodas, like the giant Wild Goose Pagoda, also located in the city of Xi'an. It is interesting to note that this pagoda, constructed in the 7th century AD, was built using the rammed earth technique with a stone exterior facade. Although the proportions of the pyramids observed by Grossman and Schroeder could have been exaggerated, white stone pyramids actually still exist in China, like the Tomb of the General, also known as the Pyramid of the East. Notice the multiple massive blocks at the base of the pyramid. Maybe they are retaining blocks that help keep the pyramid's smaller casing stone blocks stay in place. I wonder how difficult it would be to dismantle and move the casing stones away. The pyramids in Egypt are not unlike the Chinese pyramids. Some of their casing stones can still be seen at the base. Instead of rammed earth, the interior of the pyramids in Egypt were built with limestone blocks, while structural and casing components were built with harder rocks like granite and basalt. Besides the fact that China does not do a very good job at promoting its pyramids on the international scene, the Chinese pyramids are also not easily spotted from the ground, nor from space. For example, the cluster of pyramids in this old black and white photo can remain very elusive even to the trained eye. One reason is that many of the Chinese pyramids are now covered with grass and trees, and are often indistinguishable from natural hills. Clearly, trees have been methodically planted on many of the pyramids. But why? Or maybe trees just like to grow on top of pyramids, like on this ancient white stone pagoda. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for updates and more content like this.